Hello and welcome to the aForm Show, the premier podcast for all things architecture and design across the MENA region. Welcome to your tribe. Today's episode is supported by SkyStruct, the groundbreaking construction and project management solution that's absolutely turning heads in the industry. They are bringing together architects, engineers, project managers, procurement, and essentially any stakeholder onto one singular platform. Yes, clients are included. SkyStruct is genuinely changing the game. Its tailored modules for construction management, inventory, labor, cost management helps streamline the chaos of construction projects. They are rolling out very soon in Dubai, but you as a listener can get in early. Drop us an email at hello@aform.studio and find out how SkyStruct is the future, and it is here today. Now, let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome to the show. This week we are joined by the rockstar duo at Rumah Interiors. We are super excited to have on Sonal Kotecha, founder and design director at Rumah Interiors, along with Alaa Mohamed, the head of design at Rumah Interiors. Together, they have delivered multiple projects across multiple typologies, but specialize in residential interior design. Truly an honor to have them on the show. So without further ado, let's get into it. Welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you for having us. We're very excited.
Awesome. So I know that one of you have a bit of history with podcasting, so that makes my life a little easier. I guess where I want to start is, for a lot of our listeners, I don't typically start at the very beginning, or rather normally I start at the very beginning, but I think in your case, because there's so much information out there already, I think what I would like to focus on is a few niches upon which we can then expand. So what I found with Rumah Interiors, again, listening to your previous podcast, was that you have something called e-design services. Now, I heard in the podcast, which was probably a couple of years back, that this was going to be started. And I was quite happy to see on your website that it currently is offered. So I guess my question is, why this service? And since its inception, how has it done for you as a practice, as a designer? How has that offering been?
So I guess I'll start with a bit of the history of why it came around. It really came around in 2020 when COVID hit. And we were limited with regard to site visits and the kind of work that we would traditionally conduct. So when I say traditionally, I mean we would work on a project from start to finish. It would involve a lot of client interaction, supplier interaction, and site visits. And all of a sudden, or what felt like all of a sudden in 2020, when that wasn't possible, we had to find a way to pivot away from that, but still be able to offer our services to our clients in a slightly different way. So I would say our e-design service is essentially like a light version of our traditional interior design service. It typically is great for rental clients, so clients who are not planning on doing major renovations. So let's say they have moved into a property and they don't need to renovate the whole space. There's no need for renovating kitchens and bathrooms, for example. There's kind of a fixed layout. So we work with that layout. We offer furniture layouts as well as mood boards. We still offer 3D sketches that we would do as part of our traditional services package. And then the final stage is essentially where we specify the products that the client would need to buy. Largely, we do sourcing, or originally we started with doing a lot of this sourcing online, hence the name e-design. So we would favor retailers who have clear information about the products that they sell, nice clean imagery so that we can put our boards together. But as time has progressed, I would say we are still taking on projects like this, but we do open up our search to stores because now things are back to normal, right, quote unquote normal. And so that way we can still actually go out and see and feel the products that we are specifying to make sure that they meet the criteria in a holistic way. So it's been going really well. And we are still doing several projects like that at any given moment. I would say it's not our main source of projects. We still do a lot more of the traditional services packages, so renovations and new builds. But we do love to do an e-design project now and then and release a bit of the creative juices in that direction, also because they're generally turned around a lot faster. So it just keeps things moving at a different pace.
Gotcha. All right. Interesting. Because I would think at the time, I mean, of course, 3 to 4 years back, different landscape to be a designer in. Whereas now, I would think, especially in Dubai, what I found interesting about the whole e-design model was that it sort of is tailored to a lot of owners who want to enter, say, short-term leasing. So the whole like Airbnb model or, monthly leases and whatever. And I thought that was a very interesting space to be in because I don't think there are a lot of designers that actually work for that sort of niche in a way. So I guess what I'm asking is the city of Dubai specifically, I feel like that particular sector has skyrocketed quite a bit.
Yes.
So do you see a sort of increase in demand or maybe like a higher spec being asked for even in that sector?
Yes, definitely. We've definitely seen an increase in clients who are looking to furnish short-term rentals, which correlates with the explosion in short-term rentals in Dubai in general. And I'd say we also really enjoy doing projects like that because we still get to design residential interiors, but at the same time, there's not like a sentimental decision-making process, the same kind of sentiment that goes behind a selection when you are designing for an end user. And of course, they want to be involved in that decision-making process. And they still are to an extent with e-design, but it's not as limited by sentiment, I would say. So it's quite a fun space to be in to design short-term rentals.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. All right. So I'd like to get a bit of design input now from Alaa, who is very excitedly waiting near the microphone, I would like to say. Residential design for myself is quite a passion, I feel. Being an architect that works with residential clients, I find that unlike other typologies, which is, say if you work with a hospitality operator or you work with, another business, so to speak, I feel like with residential clients, you kind of build a different relationship by the end of the project. In many cases, I feel like a lot of my clients have now become friends more than clients, just because I suppose it's quite an intimate process to design someone's home. You really have to figure out how they live and all of that. So I just want to understand from an ID point of view, is it a very similar sort of experience? Is it something which you do end up being more friends by the end of the project than actual clients?
I would say yes. This is like the special part about designing residential projects, is that you actually get to have like a lot of personal interaction with the clients. You get to know the whole family, not only the client that 100%. You're working for. Yes, exactly. So you get to know the personality of each member of the family. So you know them all personally, you know the style they like, you know how they spend their day, because you're not only designing, the home they're going to be staying in, it's an experience that they're going to have every day. Right. Like, from the time they enter the house until they reach to the room, what's the flow of each person of the family. So you feel like by the end of the project, you're actually part of this family. It's so hard to detach after finishing the project. Honestly, it's not only with residential clients, because we had the same experience at Sage, because it took, I think, 6 months to complete. So we felt like we're like a big part of this project and we didn't want to leave. It's like, we couldn't believe that we're not part of this anymore.
How could you finish it without us?
Exactly. So, but the good thing is we are friends with the client. Like you said, we're friends with the clients. All our clients honestly end up being our friends, especially Sage again. So we still go every now and then to take a yoga class, to spend some time at the spa. So I think this is the very special part about interior design.
Interesting.
Yeah, even honestly, like residential projects, our residential clients, we end up going for lunches together. We still meet. It's not like we finish the project and we end the relationship.
Yeah.
We are still in touch. We always speak to them. They always speak to us.
Yeah.
Yes.
And what I've found is it's kind of, I mean, obviously, the reality is it is a fairly difficult sector to be in because it is their home. We must explore every option. We must see every material palette possible. We must see, whatever, optioneering we can do because we're going to commit to this for the next 10, 20 years of our life. So in that sense, I suppose it does become quite challenging at times. But what I've also sort of realized, which I would like to ask you, is for us on the architecture side of things, when we do a lot of residential homes, from a business point of view, they sort of lead to a lot more business invariably. Because what I found is that if you do, someone's home and they really liked it, invariably, maybe a couple of months later or a year later, it becomes, hey, you did my home. I just, bought a new office. Do you want to look at that? Or I'm opening a new store. Do you want to look at that? And things like that, which I don't think works the other way. I don't think I've heard a lot of commercial designers going down the residential route. So again, this is an architecture observation. Do you think it's like that with interiors as well?
I think it is. We have a lot of repeated clients. whether it's another residential project or another commercial project. And I think the reason is because, like we talked before, in residential projects, you develop a very close personal relationship with the clients. So if they are like opening, let's say, an office, or they have another project, they're going to reach back to us. We actually designed 2 apartments in Burj Khalifa for 2 different clients, and both of them actually came back to us because they wanted us to design either another residential project or their own office. We also designed another project for a client, and she came back to us because she was opening a gym and she wanted us to design it as well. So I would say it is very similar in the ideal world for the clients to come back to us to design different projects for them.
Makes sense. And if I were to ask sort of generally, I know that I heard Sonal talking about this on another podcast, which is, maybe 2 years back, it was quite common, and now it's probably just a standard to have like a home office, for example, because, people are working from home during COVID and so on and so forth. Today, kind of end of 2024, are there any new sort of things showing up on the brief in terms of, we'd want you to consider this space, or we'd want to only have this material, or, we're going for this kind of look and feel? Anything which is standing out now towards the end of 24?
I can think of 2 things. I think in a lot of our more recent briefs, we've been requested to intentionally design in areas for respite. So in one of our recent projects in Arabian Ranches, we had designed in a yoga area, a dedicated yoga area, which was great fun to work on. And in terms of like look and feel, there's definitely an inclination towards biophilic interiors. I think that is also a product of COVID or of 2020, that people needed a bit of nature. But I don't think it's limited just to that time period. I think there's a few reasons for it. One is Dubai is kind of a global hub. So people travel a lot. And so a lot of styles are imported. And I feel like over here, a lot of styles of late have been imported from the East. So you see a lot of influence of like Southeast Asia, Far East coming through in the use of like micro cement materials and just general style of products and furniture that's comfortable, it's not clinical, and it feels like a little bit of a holiday home in your home. So that's definitely one of the things we've been seeing a lot more of, connecting inside and outside. And I don't think it's a bad thing either. I think it's something which is not, it's not a trend. It's actually very timeless. Right. And I think the climate over here, it calls for that, because, otherwise you can feel a little bit suffocated in the summer months when all you're seeing is like a white, yellow sky. So I do think it's important to intentionally integrate green spaces into your interior.
Right. I just want to maybe drill down a little bit more there, which is, forgive my ignorance. I'm probably going to come off very ignorant, but I would assume that for a lot of clients, biophilic design probably just means green plants. I would assume. I'm assuming there's probably a lot more to it. It's not just, kind of putting, monstera plants everywhere.
Yeah.
Is it more to do with materiality as well, and not just sort of the greenery?
Oh, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head. I think to put plants in a space is just scratching the surface of biophilic design. I do think it comes down to the materials and products that you're using. So, for example, in the Sage project, we were very intentional about using natural materials because they're grounding as compared to the artificial alternatives. So I think we as designers need to be aware of the subtle non-visual impact of our decisions when it comes to designing a space. If you're going for that biophilic nature, bringing nature indoors, I think it's very much not just about the plants. It's about so many different things.
Yeah. Agreed. Well, good to know. I always sort of have this conversation with clients wherein they're like, yeah, I really like that space. It was so green and I want to have a biophilic space because that was so green. And then I kind of have to tell them, I'm like, it's more than just the plants.
Yeah, I think it's scale, it's proportion,
100%.
It's all sorts
lighting
of different.
Also, I would
exactly.
think.
Yeah.
So well, good to know. I don't sound as ignorant now. I hear from your conversation that the project Sage Wellness comes up quite a bit, right? And it looks fantastic, no doubt.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it's received quite a bit of attention, down at CID Awards and so on and so forth. Clearly a project which sort of stepped out of its niche in a way. So what I like to ask designers is that obviously when projects go well and it's a success, there are learnings from that. But what I most like to hear from designers is the projects that perhaps took a bit of a left turn, didn't really go the way that you wanted. If there was something that comes to mind, what would be the biggest learning that you took out of it, or like a key learning that you took out of it, saying that, oh, the project was not exactly how we wanted it for whatever reason, but if there is a learning you could share with the audience, what would that be?
I would say probably the biggest learning in our history as a company is very much comes down to how we structure our fees to make sure that we are being compensated for our time and skills. So when we originally started off, and I'm sure lots of other designers out there have been through a similar thing, or maybe going through a similar thing right now. I definitely have people in my social circle from the industry who I've had these conversations with on a one-to-one basis, that if you do not charge for your time when you are overseeing a project when it's during execution, you can often end up spending a lot more time than you had accounted for. And that essentially ends up costing you as a company money, because your time is being spent on that project much more than you had anticipated. And it's not only the time that you're spending, it's the opportunity cost and all the opportunities you could be missing out on because you are still engaged in a project. So I think, early on we used to club the fees to oversee a project into the design fee. But inevitably, they would go on longer for reasons way beyond our control. Perhaps there's a contractor delay or a third-party approval delay. And there'd been times very early on where we'd been convinced by a client that, no, I'm only going to need you for 3 months because I need to be in by a particular date. And then things can change along the way. And then, if the contract does not state that there's a limit to it, which was a mistake that we had made very early on, then you can actually, if I'm being very blunt, you can start resenting that project because you know that, you spent a lot of time on that beyond what you had expected. And it's not that you don't enjoy the project. We enjoy, I'd say for the best part, enjoy all the projects that we've been involved in.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it is a business. So what we have done to mitigate that is to charge a post-contract service fee, which we generally or typically do on a monthly basis. And that's to stay involved in the project all the way through. And it's very transparent. It's very clear. If, say, for example, at the end of our design process, there's a 3-month gap before they actually need us to start visiting the site, we don't charge for those 3 months. But when they need us back on the project, we're there.
Yeah.
But at least we're being compensated for that time. So that's become very clear part of our payment schedule as well as our contractual agreement with our clients. And we explain early on why it has to be on a monthly basis and it's separate to the design service fee.
Right. We do something very similar. And I'm assuming that your sort of post-contract fee would be, again, limited to a certain number of hours per month.
Correct,
right? And then should you exceed that, then that's a different conversation. Right. Okay. Yeah, makes sense. We actually had a very interesting observation over the last 2 years, which was over the summer. Again, because we sort of really doubled down in the residential sector, we found out that a lot of clients actually travel during the summer. And when they travel, obviously, it's not like, the main stakeholder traveling. It's kind of the entire family traveling. So you're kind of left with, emails unanswered and things of that nature.
Yeah.
So moving forward, we actually introduced something called a start and stop fee, which in reality is quite a negligible amount. It's not really anything that we make money off per se, but it's more just to sort of, I suppose, put it in the client's mind that, they're actually not working on my project because I've actually paid them to not work on this. They're not kind of just twiddling their thumbs, so I can't just send them a random WhatsApp, things like that.
Yeah.
When I want them to start, they'll be back in force with all the resources. And then that sort of has helped, I think, especially with us, because we tend to move quite a few of our teams around on different projects.
Right.
So having something as negligible as that, I mean, it's hardly anything, to be honest. But the fact that there's an invoice that goes out and they pay it really kind of puts in their mind that, can't really ask them because, I've asked them to stop. It would be, not fair of me, so to speak.
Yeah, even if the amount is negligible, I think it serves to just draw a line, right?
Exactly.
To say that, okay, we are pausing and, we do have other projects that we're going to be working on. It's not that, respectfully, but it's not that you're just waiting around for them to come and send you a message.
But I would say this is usually hard with the residential clients. The reason is because most of the people actually want to renovate their houses while they are away. So they would need us to keep working while they're not there.
Right.
So I think to overcome this problem is we would just need the clients to have faith in us and they trust us taking decisions on behalf of them.
Right.
If we have this relationship with the client, I think things are going to go smoothly while they are away. But if we don't, then I think this is when your solution will come in.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not something that we apply sort of universally to all clients because, obviously there are some which are like super involved. Like, I'm pretty sure if I open my WhatsApp now, there'll be a couple of messages right now. And then there are some obviously who, like you said, sort of give you complete faith and trust. And that's so awesome. This is just an observation that we had with architecture. I suppose with architecture, projects tend to go a bit longer. Maybe that's why. Like, very rarely do we, finish in 3 months, so to speak. It tends to go 6 months, 7 months, more or less, by the time there's an actual tender done and a contractor's on board and all of that. So yeah, the summer kind of hits generally in between.
I think you are right in this case. Like, the architecture is a little bit different from the interior design because we do have a lot of renovation projects. And the renovation projects take less time compared to new builds. Like, for example, we had this residential project. It's a new build and we've been working on it for how many years?
2 years.
2 years. We've been working on it 20 years and still it's not completed until this moment. But renovation projects,
because we're slow.
It is not
very
because,
big.
Because it's very big, yes. And it's like, it's a very personalized house. So the client wants to, he
very involved.
He is very involved, yes. And he travels a lot. So he sees a lot of things around the world that he wants to incorporate in his house. So this is why it's taking a long time. But renovation projects are way faster. Like, if they're traveling over summer, it's usually when we get the project done. I would say.
Yeah, summer's probably one of our busiest periods for renovations.
Yes, exactly. Summer.
Makes sense. Yeah, because a lot of people are probably not in the country and then are probably going to come back for the season in September, October. So those 3-4 months make sense to kind of.
Everyone wants to move in before Christmas. This is something
yes,
that
it's always or Diwali
or Diwali,
depending on where the client is from. But they usually in the approach to these big holidays is when the pressure becomes quite intense.
Yeah, Diwali is a big thing for us too.
Yeah.
With a lot of our clients.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's fine if it's the next day. They're like, nope, it has to be that day. I have to be living in the house on that day.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, all right, fine, sure, no problem. You touched upon something which is quite interesting, which is something which I sort of struggle with a little bit, which is resource allocation, kind of making teams, forming teams, assigning teams to projects and so on. I suppose in my case, it's a little easier because we do have a bunch of, sort of full-time dedicated employees and so on. But from what I understand at Rumah Interiors, a lot of your team is a remote, sort of hybrid working and so on. So for me personally, I don't know how I would operate that. Just because I feel like design, especially again on the architecture side of things in the beginning, needs to be somewhat collaborative in the sense that, you probably want to get like a floor plan in front of you. You want to be sketching over it. You want to be bouncing ideas off each other and so on. So I guess what I want to understand is in your sort of model, do you feel that the hybrid remote location of your staff or project-based staff, for example, do you think that in a way affects the way you operate or your quality of work or anything like that?
I wouldn't say it compromises on the quality. It can, of course, it could make it a lot easier if we're all in one location and sat around the same table every day. But I think that while that would be great, I think in this case, the pros very much outweigh the cons, whereby we can be quite agile. We can change things around as we need to. We have a team of trusted partners that we work with, and we already know each other's kind of systems and processes. They're already set up on our business Dropbox account, things like that. So when we need help, we can get them involved quite quickly. And it also allows us to be, I guess, competitive in our fees because we can manage our overheads that way. So for us, I think actually, of course, there are pros to cons to every approach. But I think for us, it's worked pretty well so far because it's not that, say, if we had a 3D renderer full-time as an employee, it's not that every single project we do requires 3D renders. So it wouldn't really make sense to be paying someone a salary. So we have a team of people who we can call on for projects and then we can work with them. And again, that can also come with its own difficulties, their availability, maybe they can't start immediately. But this is something we just have to manage on a case-by-case basis. And, it's not just one person that we work with. So if one person is not available, we generally have a backup. And that's how we manage to oversee, or how we manage to execute all of our design services.
True. I think a big advantage that I can see, which is something which, again, I sort of struggle with, is that if you need to bring on sort of hyper niche specialities, I suppose if you're already used to working in a model where a lot of your team is remote, it would be fairly easy to bring on a specialist as well who is also remote, I would think. The example that I would like to give is that on one of our projects, we needed a Vastu consultant, for example.
Yeah.
And for us, it was a challenge because we've never really worked remote. So something that you mentioned, Dropbox access, for example, it was like a task that I had to go through and be like, all right, I got to do this and then this and then this, just because we hadn't done that.
Yeah.
But once we did, I then saw the advantage and how seamless it was. It was just like, I would upload floor plans and then the next day, magically, I'd have like marked up floor plans that just showed up in the Dropbox, which was quite awesome.
Yeah.
So, but I do hear you that it can be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. I think as long as you're doing your core responsibilities in-house, like for us, Alaa and I are involved very much in the first two stages. So the concept designs, because we're having that engagement with the client. So we're really getting to understand what their needs are, like visually and functionally. So we're doing the concepts, we're doing all schematic designs in-house. So 3D modeling, preparing all of the technical drawings that we would need to get it to a certain point in the process. But there are certain things where I think it doesn't compromise on the quality. In fact, it improves the quality of our output when we can outsource things like rendering, to a specialist, because we can do it, but other people can do it much faster and potentially better. So we just think it makes sense to get those things done so that we can then focus on the day-to-day activities and make sure that by the time a design is concluded, we are very, very much involved in every single decision. And it only really goes over to freelancers or other specialists when it's at a point where the design has been frozen and it doesn't require so much client engagement. So by that point, the client already knows what they've signed up for in terms of a design. So it's not that we're taking on a design and then just giving it to somebody else to do. We very much intentionally stay involved to the point that we know that they're happy.
So it would be, I'm assuming, a lot more of sort of back-end production and things of that nature.
Technical drawing, like DD packages, for example.
Yes. Which makes sense.
We work with a company who specialize in that. And of course, it's not that we give it to them and then it's done. We still 100%. Have to review. It goes back 4 or 5 times sometimes. But the actual drawings are done by them.
Gotcha. And then that I'm assuming is the pack that would then eventually be tendered out to a contractor and so on.
But we do keep the specifications in-house because, we are here, we're meeting suppliers. And I think that's a really important part to keep in-house. But technical drawings and renderings is not caused as a problem.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, to be honest, it is something which this year, I'm very, very keenly looking at because I do see a lot of advantage. I think the way that you explained it sort of makes sense is that if you have the sort of right structure and workflow to accommodate for it, it is a very sort of, in my mind, a very modular system wherein you can just, bring on these Lego blocks on top of your sort of design train, so to speak. and then they sort of just add on, their services, and it makes you a lot more agile, a lot more nimble. So I guess I want to then pivot a little bit, and I would like to ask you again, just because this is a selfish question, right? If I was given a project which was, say, a renovation project, let's say an existing villa on the Palm, right, for example, to be renovated, or a brand new Shell & Co villa, say in Dubai Hills, right? So they've completed the entire facade. There's just Shell & Co on the inside. Can't really modify it a lot, but there's nothing there already. But the villa on the Palm is kind of operational. To me, both projects are exciting, obviously. But the one that has existing stuff in it makes me a little bit nervous just because I never really know if we remove that false ceiling, are we sure there is no other beam or no other duct there, that kind of thing. Whereas when I see a Shell & Co, I know that, okay, this is exactly what I'm getting. No other issue is going to show up. So again, I just want to understand from your point of view, because you seem to be in that space when you work with these projects quite a bit.
Yeah.
Any challenges or any observations that you see when, you're dealing with renovations versus relatively brand new builds?
Yes. Okay. So when it comes to renovations, there are probably a lot of surprises that show up during the construction process. This is a bit challenging, but at the same time, this is what we like, right? We like a bit of a challenge. So renovation projects have a lot of challenges, I would say. The reason why is because, at the beginning, we're always given, or like most of the time, we're given as-built drawings. But if it is an renovation project, there are usually so many missing information on these drawings that we are going to be surprised with when we actually get on site. Shell and core are like projects are amazing and we love them. It's essentially a blank canvas that you can be creative with. But it's more challenging to work on renovation projects. And some of our best work actually came from renovation projects in which, from spaces that we entered and said, what were they thinking? For example, the Sage
I had that feeling.
Yeah. Sage Wellness Center is a big example for this type of projects because it started as a very old, outdated villa. But now look at it. It's one of the, in my point of view, one of the most appealing wellness centers in Jumeirah 1.
I agree completely. And I think, again, when we were doing our research, I think you had mentioned that the staircase was like one of the not so appealing things about the project. If not, maybe the right word is ugly. But but one of the ugliest things in the project, and you were able to transform it to like the most beautiful thing in the project.
Yes. And this is something we're very proud of. Again, some of our best work was from renovation projects, and we have a lot of like before and afters. And when we do see it, it just feels it feels like, it's a moment of pride to see how much the space has transformed from like a very, like you said, outdated, ugly kind of design to like this type of design where everyone is impressed with when they walk in.
Right. Makes sense. I mean, again, I almost feel like I need to visit now.
I think you should take a look.
and be like, I see what you're talking about. I see it. I kind of then, at this juncture in the episode, typically like looking forward, right? I mean, obviously, as Rumah Interiors had a bunch of success, a lot of projects delivered, awards, publications, exposure, so on and so forth, right? I'm assuming this was the game plan. I'm assuming this didn't happen by accident, that there was actually, goals that we want to hit and therefore reach here. So looking forward, what would you say is next for Rumah Interiors? Do you want to be doing more projects, different types of projects, larger projects, bespoke projects? Do you want to do less work? Who knows?
So I guess I'd like to say we hope to stay on this trajectory where we do personally feel like our projects are getting better and better. It's getting the output that we are able to deliver each time we do a project is getting better. I think that's evidenced by the kind of projects we have done in the last year that we feel super proud of. So we definitely want to continue on that trajectory so that we can just keep getting better and better at what we do. In terms of types of projects, we did recently just do our first wellness space, and I think we really enjoyed that. It was like our debut into that world, but it was like our Rumah Interiors ikigai because we are both very passionate about health and well-being from a personal perspective. So being able to marry our skills as designers into spaces that have that same intention was really exciting. So we do hope to do some more of those kind of spaces. And I'm sure many more residential projects. Every residential project is quite unique because it's occupied by a unique personality. So I don't think we're ever going to get bored of doing that. I think we both love it. And that's why we gel well together as well. Because we can't have like one person who loves it and one person who hates it and the other one just kind of dragging them along. I think we both really enjoy that. But yeah, we're excited to see what else is on the horizon.
Interesting. Again, you touched upon something which, again, listening to, past podcasts that you've been on, Sonal, I heard something quite interesting, which was that you pride yourself upon not having a brand aesthetic in the sense that, every project is different and therefore, one project should not look alike like the other. Now, there are many, restaurants, for example, that if I walk in, just having been here for that long, I can kind of almost narrow it down to, maybe it's these two firms or these three firms that worked on it, just because I think over time they've sort of built exactly that. So I guess I want to know why the specific intent to not have projects look the same and not have a brand aesthetic.
So I think there are two types of designer. There are those with that signature style, and then there are companies like us who like to create something unique for each project. And I don't think either is right or wrong, but I think that I feel like we're more like design chameleons. So our clients have
I like that, design chameleon.
They have a particular need or a style, and for us, it's part of the joy in creating something for them that's unique. We don't want to recycle the same thing for every client. Of course, it could increase the efficiency of our workflow. Again, if going back to like the commercial aspect, to have a signature set of details or materials that we use in every project, make it a lot easier for us when it comes to actually doing our specifications and doing our drawing packages. But yeah, we like Alaa was saying earlier, a challenge, creating something unique for our clients. But yeah, like I said, there is no right or wrong. I think the thread that, rather than a visual thread that ties our projects together, I think, the thread that ties our projects together is the process that we apply. And it's tried and tested in the years that we've been doing this. We know that if we kind of take our clients on this same journey, whether it's a home or a wellness center or an office, we can achieve a kind of successful conclusion to their design, providing we stick to that process.
Right.
It's only when things go off track, let's say, for other various reasons, that things can come out maybe not in the way we had originally intended. So we are quite mindful of applying our process to every project we do, regardless of the style that we're trying to create for them.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Yeah, I think it's a bit of an odd one, right? Because I know a lot of colleagues who have, after having worked in, much larger firms, have, then gone off to sort of start their own studio. And I find that they always have this sort of like identity crisis almost to an extent after having worked, say 15, 20 years in a studio and then having your own sort of boutique. You kind of get, how should you say, sort of, there's so many details, for example, which just come naturally to you, which was just the way that studio did it. And to kind of shed it all away and start afresh, I think is a challenge for quite a lot of people. So yeah, I quite like what you guys are doing. Kind of keeping the process as the uniform thing throughout the project is quite awesome. I like that.
Thank you.
So as a closing tradition to the show, we have something called the aForm tradition, which is a bit of a curveball for a lot of our guests. So don't feel nervous. It's fine. This is normally where we break and have a coffee and our listeners don't know that we've been gone for an hour. But basically what it is that it's a question that's asked by one of our previous guests to the next guest, not knowing who they are. So you don't know who the previous guest is. They don't know who you are. And sometimes it's silly stuff like, do you like cats or dogs? and sometimes it's like really philosophical design questions. So we don't know what we're going to get today. So we're going to pick it out, see what happens.
Exciting.
Yeah. But I mean, generally, like you can take as much time as you want. Like, don't feel free to be like, yes, the answer is. It's all good.
I hope it's the cats and dogs question.
Maybe it is. All right. So the question we have is, thankfully it's from an interior designer. I can tell you that much. Right. So, and there is a bit of a two-part thing. So maybe each of you can take like one part of it, I think.
Okay.
So, quite simply is, for you as a designer, can you name one red flag and one green flag when working with a client?
Oh, that's interesting. That's a very nice question.
So one red flag, one green flag.
I think when it comes to green flags, it's a green flag when a client approaches us who is themselves a working professional, because I feel like they have an appreciation for our kind of time and skill set in return. So we feel that there's like a mutual respect, I guess. we've had clients before who are specialists in their own industry, and it's not like we would go in there and kind of tell them how to do their job and vice versa. I think that respect is mirrored. And of course, with residential projects, everyone does have their own opinion, but we tend to find that our clients who are working professionals themselves, they have an appreciation and respect for your time, and they themselves have a limit on how many variations that they might want on a particular design conclusion. So yeah, I do enjoy working with or for other working professional clients.
Makes sense. I think they would just, like you said, because they sort of work within a structured time frame of a day, so to speak, they by default understand that, everyone has boundaries, and therefore everyone has a sort of start and stop when it comes to work. And odds are that they would respect it because they obviously operate within that same framework.
Yes, correct.
That would make sense. Alaa, I'm pretty sure you have a green flag.
Oh, unfortunately not.
No, you have a red flag too?
Two red flags.
Wow. All right.
Well, the first red flag is unrealistic deadlines or unrealistic timelines generally. Like we've been approached by so many clients who tell us that, they want to move in next month.
Yeah.
And, they want the design and the execution completed in 1 month.
Yeah.
Like how they are imagining this happen, I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is a big red flag for us. And yeah.
I think we've also come to get comfortable with explaining like, it's not possible.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not possible.
And then they might say that, but somebody else said they can do it in that time scale and for half the price. Then we're very comfortable to say, okay, go ahead, because someone else, if we know objectively something is unrealistic, then it's going to be unrealistic for others too.
100%. 100%.
You had a second one.
Yes, I think clients who negotiate a lot in terms of fees.
Right.
This is, again, for us is a red flag because we understand that people have strict budgets that we have to stick with and all, and we completely understand this part. But if a client, is coming in just for the sake of having an interior designer, but they don't really know the value that they're going to get and the amount of time we're going to spend on their projects, and they're expecting the design to be completed within an unrealistic budget, is something, again, it's a red flag for us. Like if they negotiate, and you can also get a feeling from them that they might not, pay you on time in the future. Right. And we did have, type of clients before. So it's also one of the learnings that we learned over time to, dig out these red flags.
I found, again, this is a fairly new thing which I've started doing but I think if you give context to a lot of clients, it sort of helps them. For example, like if someone comes to us and starts negotiating our fees, right? I kind of tell them, I'm like, just high level numbers, right? I'm like, if you're going to pay a designer to design your house, and let's say you're going to pay them 200,000, right? And your overall budget for your full build project is say 2 million, right? So it's so 10% of 2 million, that kind of thing. I'm like, instead of trying to negotiate 20-30% off my fee, we can guarantee that I can get off 20-30% off your main project fee just by things like material selection or things like this and so on and so forth. And if you do have a budget to hit, it's much easier to think about it from a overall project point of view rather than kind of going to like every consultant and every contractor and so on and so forth. I think it's a much easier way to save a few 100,000 dirhams than trying to like break the spirit of a designer.
Yeah.
I think this is a great way to think of it. And again, to put it forward.
Yeah.
Because again, this is something also in like we are the ones who specify the materials, and out there in the market, there's so many options at different price levels. Yeah. So this is something in our control. So maybe we should. This is one of the learnings again from this podcast.
Wow. Did I just impart wisdom?
You did for sure.
Wow. Who would have thought, right? Me of all people. Well, obviously, this has been a really fun episode. So I'd like to take this opportunity on behalf of our team listening in. Thank you so much for your time. I keep telling everyone that comes on that the show is only possible because of designers like yourself taking time out of your already very busy time. I get it. So thank you for giving us your time and sharing your stories with us. It really helps the entire community overall.
Well, thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
We really enjoyed. Yeah.
Awesome. And for the rest of you guys, we will catch you guys next week. Fellow aFormer, thank you so much for your time. If this episode added any value to you, please share it with anyone who may benefit. If you want to carry on the discussion, please get in touch with us over socials. We are at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aForm.studio on email. That is at aForm Show on the gram and hello@aForm.studio on email. Until next time, stay inspired.